So it became a bit more like a project as opposed to, a songwriting session. It became like an art project. So we would take something like the opening track on the album, The Head That Tried to Strangle Itself. We were talking about consciousness that we talked about earlier on. So we thought, well, when you're conscious, your mind, the electricity's buzzing, it won't switch off. And you want it to, you can't stop thinking. So we just, what's that like? So we said, well, what it is it's like, it's a nagging feeling. So the music's two riffs over and over again. And Neil and Michael said, yeah, but you're tossing and turning in bed. So the guitar's playing the same thing, but underneath the bass and the drums are kind of moving slightly in different directions. So very subtly, they're changing.
Yeah.
So that actually when you listen to the track, it's actually quite paranoid. It sounds, it's not a pleasant listen because it actually sounds uncomfortable. And there's one bit in the song where it stops and plays one note constantly to the point where the listener's going, what the fuck's this? And then it changes again, and then that's a relief when the tension stops.
Yeah.
And all through the album, all the songs on the record were treated like that. We did a song called Exiles after looking at a photograph taken from space by one of the first astronauts that just makes you realize just how alone in the universe planet Earth is.
Yeah.
So we tried to keep all the music in the drums and the bottom end of the bass and leave loads and loads of space in the sound for little effects in the voice so that it would create that sense of kind of alienation and wonder at the same time.
So you actually discussed more in the studio what the sound and what the song should be like?
Oh, completely. And
more than previous?
More than probably since our very, very, very first record that we did ourselves. And that was like really liberating because it meant that, the songs meant so much to us. It was almost like, it was hard work because it was from scratch and it took a lot of time. I mean, it took 3 months of hard work to get the songs right. So it meant that maybe there wasn't commercial melodic songs like on Troublegum, which I think are like nursery rhymes in a way, going nowhere. It's like, it's very nursery rhymey melodies. But this one is something which, I know that I'll always be fond of this record. If I was asked about this record in 4 or 5 years' time, I'll be really proud of it.
Did it take the pressure of you more as the main songwriter in previous years, or?
Well, to be honest, I think everyone keeps going back to Troublegum and saying, you guys should do a Troublegum Part 2. But there was an awful lot of factors in Troublegum. It was the 90s, guitar music was fashionable. We were younger and would sign to a major record label for a lot of money, and we had a lot of money behind us for marketing. Magazines all over the world were putting us on the front covers because we were a newish band. And the songs themselves are like nursery rhymes. The melodies are very, very simple. Now, to prove a point, when we did this album, our drummer was saying, before we started, he went, we could do two things here. We could do this album, the concept that we want to do, this project, or we could just try and write 12 anthems. And we none of us really felt our hearts were in that, because when you try to do something, then you can't really do it. If you have to think about it, if you have to think about writing a hit single, it ain't going to be a hit single. And to prove a point, we had a couple of what I thought were catchy songs, and we tried to do them in the Troublegum mold as an experiment. And they sounded awful. They sounded like AOR music, really bad AOR. And we were sitting going, we can't overanalyze this too much because the song structures are 3.5 minutes long. It's verse, chorus. It's chuggy type guitar, and the chorus is really catchy, but it doesn't have the impact it doesn't have the honesty of Troublegum, because Troublegum was done, when we wrote that album, we weren't thinking we were writing a hit album. We thought we were writing a bunch of poppy rock songs, but we didn't think it was going to be a hit, and it was. But when you go in thinking we have to write a hit, it never happens that way, you know what I mean? If we went in and thought about Troublegum being a successful album, it wouldn't have been a success.